I messed up tonight. I lost another fight. I still mess up, but I'll just start again. I keep falling down. I keep on hitting the ground. I always get enough to see what's next. Birds don't just fly, they fall down and get up. Nobody learns without getting it wrong. I won't give up, no I won't give in till I reach the end and then I'll start again. No I won't leave, I wanna try everything, I wanna try even though I could fail.
All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Zootopia Minute, the minute-by-minute podcast where we review and analyze everyone's favorite hit film from 2016, Zootopia. And we are very pleased to join you for our very first live episode at a pony. Oh my gosh, I said it. At a furry convention here at Anthro Northwest. Thanks for coming, guys.
So, a little backstory before we actually begin. This is actually, you guys might know me. I vend at a lot of furry cons. I do about 5-6 furry cons a year. And we've done this panel only specifically at pony conventions. Simul here, my co-host, has never been to a furry convention. Mm-hmm. And since he lives in Seattle, and Anthro Northwest is taking place here, and they accepted our panel, we're like, why not drag him out to his very first furry convention? So I hope you guys give him a nice big furry welcome.
A furry welcome. That sounds so inviting. Yeah, it's good to be here. I haven't seen much of the con yet because I just got here. I had to work today, and then I head down here just to get set up for this panel, but I'm definitely excited. Never been to a furry con, so it should be fun. So introductions, yes, my name is Simul, and if any of you are familiar with the brony community at all, that's actually where me and Choco first met. You might know me. I do some cosplay stuff at BronyCon. If anyone's ever been there, I was the official Hoofbeats mascot cosplayer for that. And I'm also the chair for Everfree Northwest, which is a local My Little Pony fan convention here in Seattle as well. Bellevue, really, but you know.
It used to be in SeaTac, so.
It used to be in SeaTac, which is very big on startup cons for sure, if anyone's ever been down to there.
And my name is Choco, though in the furry fandom you guys might know me as an Animorphs. I specialize in drawing transformation art, though you guys might know me in the dealer's den for my flags, pins, and badges, which you might have seen around the con. I do vending and conventions full-time, and I'm currently writing a history book on conventions, and if you guys are interested in checking that out, I am doing a panel tomorrow evening on the history of furry conventions, so if you guys are interested, check that out.
Yes, indeed. All right, so what we're here to do is to analyze this 1 minute of the film Zootopia, which we all just took a look at, and just to establish where we're at in the minute. This is actually minute...
Actually, since a lot of these people are first-time listeners, maybe we should kind of introduce them to the concept of what we do.
Yeah, so here's the way it's going to work. This is minute 74 of the film, and what we do, for those following along at home, it would be from timestamp 1:14:00 to 1:14:59 if you have the special Blu-Ray edition. And here's how this is going to work. We've just seen a minute of this movie. We are going to spend the rest of the time we have in this panel room talking about just that single minute of the movie.
If you don't know, this is so we have been doing at least 75 episodes. This is our 74th minute. So we are actually modeled off the minute-by-minute, the movies-by-minute podcast style. The first one was started by Alex Robinson and Pete the Retailer. It was called the Star Wars Minute, where they reviewed the movie Star Wars 1 minute at a time. 1 minute equals 1 episode. We are essentially doing the same concept, and we are now, you guys are joining us here live for our 74th minute. So hopefully you guys don't think, oh, wait, why are they starting at this random minute instead of at minute 1? It's like, well, we've already been doing this for about 3 years now, so you guys are just along halfway to the ride.
Yes. So as I said, this is minute 74, timestamp 1:14:00, 1:14:59, and this minute begins at a stage in the movie where, first of all, how many of you have seen the full movie Zootopia? Literally everyone here. That's never happened before.
It's a furry movie.
Yeah, right. Awesome. So if you remember this stage of the movie, what has just happened previously is the press conference at the police station where they had caught Mayor Lionheart, who had kidnapped all the missing mammals, and hey, the mammals are going savage. Judy kind of doesn't think about what she's saying and goes on to imply to the whole media that predators are the ones to be blamed, kind of. So following that, they kind of had a falling out, Nick and Judy did, and Nick has sort of stormed off, and this is kind of the aftermath of that we're beginning to see here. So the first thing we see in this minute is a bit of dialogue from a newscaster, that snow leopard character we see here up on the screen. The 27th such attack comes just 1 week after ZPD officer Judy Hopps connected with violence to traditionally predatory animals. And another newscaster takes over. We hear about peace rallies organized by Gazelle. This is the character played by Shakira. This peace rally here, we see some dialogue here, a pig yelling at a leopard to go back to the forest. And then we have an interview with Gazelle where she talks about Zootopia being a unique place, a crazy, beautiful, diverse city where we celebrate our differences. This continues as we also have a cutaway showing Mrs. Otterton and Judy looking at Emmett, who has been recovered now, but he is still in sort of this savage state. This is weird watching this. This is like a creepy scene. I don't even like looking at that. And Mrs. Otterton remarks, "That is not my Emmett," as Judy sadly looks on. And then this minute ends on, "We cannot let fear divide us. Please." And then the minute ends. We have a sentence cut in half, and that actually happens a lot on this show. We don't try to fudge the numbers at all. We go exactly with what the timestamp tells us. Sometimes we end up perfectly on a scene transition. Sometimes we end up in the middle of a sentence like this, but we just take it from there. So starting off, anything you wanted to bring up right away?
I wanted to say, so we're looking at the first scene in the first minute, which says Tundra Town Tragedy. And I read that as Tegrity for some reason.
Tegrity?
Like Tegrity Farms.
Zootopia needs Tegrity. That's funny. South Park fans here? Oh, yeah.
Awesome. So with the dialogue, we have this snow leopard newscaster talking, and she mentioned connection with predators when Officer Judy Hopps made the connection with predators. And as a predator saying that, you could see her...
She does a good job of not, letting any sort of emotion come through, I guess. Like, she's essentially talking about her own class of people as being the source of where the fear is coming from, I guess. But she's keeping her cool.
She's very stoic. But you could I think you can hear it kind of in her voice that she's kind of upset.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Let's watch this again here. We'll just let it run without the sound here. It seems
she's basically taken away because she doesn't want to talk about the rest of the...
That's true. It does transition to the moose, because a moose is not a predator.
Oh, and here's the interesting fact. So if you guys don't know, Zootopia was released, of course, all around the world under different names. And in different regions, they actually had different animals fill in for the newscaster. So for the North American version, we actually had a moose. I forgot who the newscaster was, but they actually had a popular newscaster from North America fill in for the American and Canadian versions of this film. In China, it was a panda. They said in South America that it was a jaguar, and in Britain there was a corgi, but there's been no evidence of the corgi, even though that's been widely reported in the news. But if you watch different versions from around the world, different animals take the place of the moose, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah. So as the snow leopard stops off here, according to this transcript of the film, which I do have up, the moose's name is Peter Moosebridge. Is that a pun on a real newscaster, maybe? That might be the case. But he says, "Meanwhile, a peace rally organized by pop star Gazelle was marred by protest." And this is where we have that fun bit of dialogue here between the pig and the leopard here. "Go back to the forest, predator. I'm from the savannah." There we go.
So as we pointed out this in previous minutes, but this pig is a very domesticated looking pig, which would probably not exist in this world if animals evolved naturally without human intervention. But like we were saying, most people are not as familiar with wild boars or wild pigs, so this will probably be the best compromise for this film.
It's more recognizable. So a pink pig like this, you're not going to see that out in the wild. Because the idea here is that it is like an alternate universe where rather than humans becoming dominant, they just aren't a thing, and all the other animals gain sentience, I guess. Yeah, we wouldn't. Oh, here's another theory though. Humans created the pink pig through like selective breeding and stuff, but maybe if the pigs domesticate themselves by like becoming civilized, does the same effect happen? Like,
No.
why not?
Do we domesticate ourselves?
Yes.
No, we breed
Literally-
based on what we find attractive, and if
Yes,
we're able to
and that's-
reproduce, then we
That's
reproduce.
a form of selective breeding.
Pigs will not breed themselves to be fat and, well, I guess we did, but whatever.
You know what? No, it's just that they're facing the same crisis that America faces when it comes to obesity and all that, you know?
All right.
This is a realistic society we're
Actually,
living
and
in.
back to the newscaster. So the inspiration for Peter Moosebridge was actually a newscaster named Peter Mansbridge.
So it's literally moose instead of man.
And okay, so
like
I was looking up the list of all the different animals. So apparently in Australia, they did have a koala as their newscaster.
Oh, it's the newscaster?
And they
Nice.
had a tanuki for the Japanese version.
What is a tanuki?
It's the raccoon dog with a leaf on its head.
What is a raccoon dog with a leaf on its head?
It's
What does that
It's
mean?
a Japanese thing.
What kind of animal is
Okay,
that? Is
it's
that
a,
like
I think it's a real life animal that they kind of made into a mythical creature, but it actually exists.
Do you have a way of getting that up there? Or probably not, huh?
No.
It looks like a cross between a beaver
I'll just show it
and a
on my phone.
squirrel.
But it's a weird tanuki. So it's basically a raccoon dog with a leaf on its head.
Someone should Google, what is it called? How do you spell it? Google the name of that animal
Just
and
Google raccoon
fursona.
dog. Persona.
I want to find who has that as a
No,
fursona.
they're actually raccoon dog personas do exist. They're very popular because they're a mixture between.
Well, it's a hybrid then in that
Well,
case.
no,
right?
because they are actually a fox species, but they kind of look like raccoons. So people who are deciding between maybe a fox or a raccoon persona will choose as a intermediary.
I see. Okay.
All right.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, there you go. There's one already. Perfect. Well, this first bit of dialogue we get aside from the newscasters is between the pig and this leopard protester. Go back to the forest predator. I'm from the savannah. And
But they won't really say that. Like, okay, so as a minority, when people say, "Where are you from?" people assume I will say China or something, but I will say I'm from California. I was
Right.
born here. I'm not going to say I'm from the savannah in the equivalent
right,
of that.
this line is designed to parallel something that some people may be hearing in
But
the
you
real
wouldn't even
world.
say I'm from Savannah. You might say I'm from Savannah town. Or
Maybe that's just colloquial for the Savannah
Maybe.
Square in Zootopia, right? Or it's a different part of the world. That's another thing we've been trying to figure out is how much of the world exists beyond Zootopia. Like, is it a city-state? Is it a city in a country? And it seems fairly ambiguous.
like we saw with the last minute when Nick was applying for the police officer position, if you look on his form, one of the questions on the form was, "Are you from Zootopia, yes or no?" So it implies residence in Zootopia is important, so it must be some type of city-state.
Well, I feel like we've asserted definitely that like it's distinct from other areas in the world. Like, what's the name of Judy's hometown?
Bunny Burrows.
Yeah, that's very clearly not Zootopia. It's like it's a different part of the world. Because she has to take a train to get over there, right? So, I mean, that is kind of interesting, just figuring out how big is this world really. And, you know, they have said they're working on a sequel. So it's the type of thing where maybe we might see it in future films, like a bit more of the world here. Maybe it'll expand beyond just the city of Zootopia itself. I would
more
like that.
Judy and Nick shipping.
See, I'm not big on shipping, but all right.
Let's go back to the protest scene, and we could see, if you guys have this minute pulled up, you could see that there is a mixture of predators and prey in the protesting. Specifically, it seems like gazelle and an antelope are the only two prey you can really see, and I think there might be a zebra behind the jaguar's head, while everyone else is let's look up, we have a bear, we have two tigers, and a wolf.
Now, this is interesting because you can clearly tell that not all the protesters are just predators, right? This isn't like a down the line division. There's clearly prey animals here that are still saying, you know, I don't like that you guys are going after predators either, right? And gazelle is obviously the big example of that. right? She's sort of spearheading this thing. Can we read some of these signs? What do they say
Sure,
here?
let's have some.
Zootopia is for everyone. Looks like it's held by an ibex or something. Pred Pride. I like that one.
No more hate with a paw print that has
symbol.
a peace symbol on the inside.
That's the type of logo that furry cons use. It's just I've noticed most furry cons have a paw print. Always,
but
basically.
This is your first furry con?
That doesn't mean I haven't seen logos
Okay.
of these things. I'm interested in design on that level. I mean,
We have two Pred Pride signs. Actually, they look almost identical. They have the exact same paw prints.
oh, so it's
the
like
corners.
it's not a real protest.
Yeah, it's
Someone
like
went
those
and printed
manufactured
them and
protests,
said,
yeah.
go hold this sign for the cameras.
Exactly.
No, probably not. It's interesting. There's on this sort of raised plateau thing here. I'm guessing this is like a city park or like a square kind of deal.
And once again, we can see the size difference with the animals. See how big the elephants and rhinos are? And the giraffes, their heads are not even fitting in the screen.
I know. It's like the adults in Cow and Chicken or the pilot of Fairly Odd Parents where their heads are always just cut off. You can never see them off the top of the screen.
Actually, zooming back out, the two peace symbol signs are also identical on either side.
So it is a manufactured
It's a
crisis.
manufactured protest.
Fake news.
Fake news. All right.
So now we have an interview with Gazelle. Gazelle takes a stand, as the ticker on the bottom
As
says.
we know, Gazelle is voiced by the fantastic Shakira.
Shaquelle. I like that.
And I was misspelling her name the entire time. I was trying to figure out what Shakira's
I'm like, no, you just
nationality
wrote
is.
Sharika. No, that's Sharia. No.
I wrote Shark Kira as well.
Shark Kira. So alternate Zoosona
So
for
nuts.
Shakira there.
If Zootopia took place in the ocean. But Shakira actually is from Colombia, which explains her accent, but she also has family in the Basque region of Spain where she currently lives. So she explains her very unique accent, which is interesting because gazelles are not from Colombia or Spain. You would assume they would pick like an alpaca.
Well,
for her.
do we know, like, did they ask her what animal she wanted to be?
Oh, what her Zoosona was?
Yeah.
Oh, if
Or
you guys
was it
don't
just a
know,
sign?
Since he doesn't consider himself
I'm not a furry, by the
he
way.
doesn't consider himself a furry. So he does not, we do not call his character a fursona, we call it a
It's a Zoosona. It's completely different, okay? There's no overlap whatsoever.
Apparently there is because I was on the Zootopia Reddit the other day, and apparently they said the same thing. It was like, our Zoosonas are very different from fursonas.
It's true.
And they laid out the points of how Zoosonas are different than
Dude, I'm not
fursonas.
being facetious about that. It's true. They are different. And we've talked about what makes them different, too. Is
He's shaking his head.
you can only be... Notice you're not allowed to be a domesticated animal.
That's
you
true.
don't see like dogs and cats and or cows and things. You do see fursonas like that, but in Zootopia, domesticated animals don't exist. They're not an option. There's also pretty much only mammals.
Yep,
You don't
mammals.
see fish. You don't see
No
featheries.
primates.
No featheries allowed.
No featheries. No scalies.
I don't know, by the way, how people feel about those terms, because I've heard some people say they don't like they prefer avian over feathery or something, but so
This is his
apologies
first
for
furry
any
con, so let's let him
for any
make all the
fur
mistakes.
paws.
He's going to learn along the way. He's going to accidentally offend a avian or feathery and say the wrong term.
Did no one appreciate that pun I just made? Fur paw instead of faux paw? Never mind. Well, this protest does continue. I do have to wonder, though, whether she got a choice over that animal.
Well, you know the voice of Elsa from Frozen.
Frozen 2 just came out today.
Kristen Bell.
Yeah, there is.
She loves sloths, and she had a voice in this movie as a female sloth from the DMV. She specifically won that role because she wanted to be a sloth because that's her favorite animal.
You just look through the list of available parts. Sloth. Sloth! I want that one. Perfect.
Well, it's Elsa. You could do it, or Anna. I don't know. She's one of those two. Oh, she's Anna. That's it.
Yeah, Frozen 2 was released in theaters today.
Ooh.
That is.
It should be Zootopia too. Sorry.
It's coming. That's what they say. Well, what does Gazelle say here? She says, Zootopia is a unique place. It's a crazy, beautiful, diverse city where we celebrate our differences. This is not the Zootopia that I know. The Zootopia I know is better than this. And this cuts in with a scene of Judy on a train here. We'll pull that up in just a moment here.
Oh, look, she's between two bellies. That's a furry thing, right?
This is someone's... What are these panels supposed to be rated? All right, here we go. We're on a train. It's very dark on this screen. Can you turn this up at all? Yes, I can. Perfect.
I don't think it goes up.
It's even worse up there.
But we do see what looks like a little hamster behind Judy.
That's another thing we've discussed a lot on this podcast, if you listen to some previous episodes, is engineering a city when you have to cater to citizens of varying morphology, where you have something like a giraffe that's like 20 feet tall, or that's not how tall giraffes are.
Or bronies and furries. They can't be in the same place.
Yeah, or then you have hamsters, you have mice, and you've got stuff in the middle. You've got rabbits, you've got foxes, you've got all kinds of things. And just the way they've had to engineer the city to accommodate everybody is really interesting. Earlier in the movie, some of you guys might remember that there's the train that pulls up, the big doors open, all the big animals get in. There's like a set of smaller doors that opens up at the bottom for all the rodents filing in and out. We've seen mouse cars, which weirdly drive on the same road as the big cars, and that to me screams danger. Like, I don't know how they get away with that without getting crushed. Or parking enforcement. That was another thing we talked about, is if you've got a giant elephant car, you're going to take up a lot more space than a tiny mouse car is. Do they charge for parking the same way? We saw a scene earlier when Judy was still a meter maid, and she puts a ticket on the tiny mouse car, and it like makes the whole car blow away because the wind catches it.
All right, so back to the train scene. We have a tiger sit across from Judy right next to a bunny family that kind of might maybe it reminds Judy of herself and her mother, because they look like very similar looking bunnies.
Are you implying all rabbits look the same?
No, not all rabbits look the same. But if we look at the tablet that the tiger is holding, it has a little paw print on it. So once again, the symbol.
Just to remind you that you are watching a furry movie.
Yes, exactly. I thought you said they were zooies, not furries.
It's still a furry movie. Look, when this movie was first announced, literally the first thought through, I'm sure everyone in here's head was like, yes, furry movie. Hell yes. Right? Wait a minute. This tiger here, by the way, so he's just sitting down here, and the effect we're trying to get here is that this mom is like really uneasy.
Well, look at his big paws. You don't want to be whacked with
Stop
his paws.
flashing the underside of his feet. This is a G-rated panel. I was going to say this tiger looks familiar. Is that one of the sexy tigers that YMS was talking about? We had Your Movie Sucks on this podcast as a guest once, and
that's all you talked about were these
sexy Adam
tigers.
was remarking that the sexy tigers dancing in the credits were some of
we were actually trying to drag him down, since he lives in Vancouver. We were trying to drag him down here to be a guest on this panel, but he couldn't make it. He's a big YouTuber. He's too good for us now.
He's too busy, you know. I think it is the same tiger. Like, I want to make a mental note of that.
I think it's the same. It's the same model, because how many character models?
He looks like he could be a model. It's a good-looking tiger. I mean, like,
and this guy says he's Metro. Okay.
So, all right, we got them on the train. The mom kind of brings her in. The kid's oblivious, right? The kid doesn't realize that she's being raised with this hateful attitude.
The tiger is also oblivious, which kind of saves him from.
Well, was the tiger man-spreading at first?
You mean tiger spreading or pred spreading?
Pred spreading. Oh no! I regret everything.
Welcome to your first furry con.
That's our hashtag. That could be the name of the episode. The Pred Spread. I like that.
Hashtag spread.
Oh, good Lord.
No.
So again, Judy, you got to look at Judy's face here. She's real upset because at a certain extent she's thinking this is my fault, right?
Well, it is her fault.
She went out on this news conference, and we've had a little bit of a disagreement here. I kind of lay the blame all on Judy, and Choco kind of lays it more on the police department for letting her go up.
Is the PR?
With.
Yeah, they should not have put someone out there without telling her exactly what to cover and what not to talk about.
So in terms of like who should they fire, I agree. Maybe it's whoever said go up there and gave her no clue about what to say. But I still think Judy lacked like any kind of common sense in that.
Again, it's not her fault. She shouldn't have been put up there. All right. That was the case.
Well, you can see the look on her face. She's real upset about it. She's feeling guilty about the whole thing. And now here she is visiting with Mrs. Otterton, who Emmett, remember, was the first mammal that Judy looked at to really say, like, I want to work on this case, right? Because no one else was going after the missing mammals. It It was all, well, they were, but not this one because they were short-staffed. And yet Boko still tried to make her do parking duty.
And like I said, low secret, you could tell that Emmett is a furry because he's wearing pants. Look at that.
Again, not all furries wear pants.
No, that's actually what Your Movie Sucks made a joke about too. In one of his previous, I think it was the Cool Cat review he made, where he said you could tell Cool Cat is a furry because he wear human clothing.
I guess.
You know?
I don't know. There's furry stuff that doesn't involve clothing. It's just, well, okay, let's get back to this.
Again?
So, this also is interesting because for the majority of this movie, Judy has seemed like extremely tiny compared to basically everything else going on in the scene. It's an interesting break to see an animal that's finally smaller than she is.
But otters are normally larger than rabbits.
I agree. There's been some discussion about Judy's character model in this movie that the sizing isn't consistent.
Because compared to, so when she was in Little Rodentia with all the little rodents,
the macro
she was
town,
way too big compared to the rodents. Well, a mouse should be compared to a rabbit. But as we know, in that previous version of the movie, it was mostly Nick running around that scene. So I guess they had to fill in where Nick was with Judy's character in Weaselton.
I remember seeing the concept art for that, and even some of the mouse.
More concept art just got released today by one of the animators on the movie. He released some early animatics of Nick in that scene, which was very interesting.
I did not know that. I'll have to take a look at those. Well, anyway, they're in here. It's really nice of Judy to be visiting her because, I mean, it at least shows that Judy's really concerned about what's going on. And there's kind of two issues here. There's the fact that the predators going savage is creating this big social divide. It's kind of polarizing the population. And there's also just the fact that it's still a mystery as to what's going on. We're not at the point in the movie yet where we know why they're going savage to begin with. So Mrs. Otterton is really concerned about Emmett, and it's nice to see Judy there giving some support. I really like watching him just kind of march around that pole. Look at that. That's so cute. Something we wanted to point out here. Look at Mrs. Otterton's eyes here. Really big, really expressive, with a lot of visible white, right? When the predators go savage in this movie, that goes away. You start seeing less of the whites of the eyes. It's hard to tell here because it's blurry and dark.
But you can see it's mostly black eyes. You don't see any whites of Emmett's eyes.
And that's something that they did with this movie to create the effect of mental regression back into a savage.
So does that mean all anime characters went savage? Because anime characters have these big black pupils?
Not always.
Okay.
I don't know. You're digging too deep.
Like Lucky Star?
But I don't know Lucky Star. That's one of those animes that I don't want to watch.
Okay.
Because
I don't want to watch Evo then. Jeez.
Fine. But anyway, that's something that this movie does to accomplish that effect, is it makes them look more like an IRL animal when they go savage by getting rid of these goofy cartoon eyes.
And also, Simul just arrived to this con, his first furry con. Don't tell him this now, but this is basically what all the other furry room parties are like. Just an otter marching around.
This is where they are right now? Okay.
Don't give him the wrong impression.
No, he's going to enjoy it.
No. Oh, she's so sad.
Look how big she is, Judy is.
I know. This is the one time Judy looks like a large character. It's interesting. Well, let's see here. There's a little bit more dialogue that happened here. This was as Gazelle is speaking here, saying, we don't know why, or we don't just blindly assign blame. We don't know why these attacks keep happening, but it is irresponsible to label all predators as savages. And then it goes to that asylum scene. And we hear from Mrs. Otterton, that's not my Emmett, as Judy looks on sadly. The very last line we have in this minute is Gazelle saying, we cannot let fear divide us, please. And that's it. Cuts off at the end of a sentence. That does happen sometime, as we've mentioned. So in this particular minute, there's not a whole lot of action necessarily, but it's telling a story visually with what's happening on the screen. We have Gazelle giving an overview kind of what the spirit of the city has changed into.
Actually, I think this is where Shakira speaks the most in the movie, aside from her song.
Yeah.
This is her main role.
This is her cameo.
Yeah, this is her cameo.
Other than earlier, I'm Gazelle. Welcome to Zootopia. There was that one.
Yes.
But now we're at, you're right, it is a much larger stage for her here now.
So, aside from that, this is your first FurryCon. How are you enjoying things so far?
I don't know. This isn't a good example because I got here so late. I literally got here like 2 hours ago. I had to work today.
So this is my co-host Simul here. He's represented by the bunny in this scene.
Yeah.
Even though he's wearing the
That's
my fox
my
suit
Zootopia. So Choco gave me the badge here, and it has like the my name is, and I only saw that for the longest time. I didn't realize on the back it says my fursona is. So bunny got put there. But again, that's incorrect. I'm not a furry. This is a Zoosona, not a fursona.
We are trying to figure out what his fursona would be. If a bunny is his Zoosona, what would his fursona be? I've drawn him I drew him as an otter before as well.
Yes.
Because he had a really cute picture taken with this otter.
I don't know. Any ideas? What would it be? Jackalope. That's interesting. Wait, that's not a real animal.
No, it's not.
Does that work? Can you use mythical animals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the furry fandom, because it's not constrained like in
Yeah,
Zootopia.
it's pretty broad, I suppose. Interesting. I don't know.
All right. So, before we continue onward, we have some prints up here, which we would like to give away to people who I guess we're going to take questions or comments. And if you have an interesting question, we'll give you one of these prints. And then I guess we will kind of expand from there. If you guys have any questions for us, feel free to raise your hands and we'll try to go through to everybody. All right.
Just out of curiosity, how long have you been in the Brody fandom?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. So, I'll speak just for myself because, again, that's how we both met. For me personally, it was like 2011. I got into My Little Pony between seasons 1 and 2. Anyone else in here bronies? Or like maybe don't have to use that word, but fans of MLP? Yeah. There is a bit of overlap. There's debate.
There is a debate.
So I am very adamant that bronies and furries are not the same thing. There is overlap. You can be both, but being a brony doesn't automatically make you a furry. That's my opinion, but I feel like it's shared by a lot of people.
We are curious, I guess, what your reactions would be.
It's shared by a lot of bronies.
There's some. All right, so there's some people who say that bronies are a subcategory as furries, and some who say bronies are very distinct from furries because there is different interests in what they liked. And
here's my spiel on it. And again, this is just my opinion, but my whole thing is that there are obvious similarities between the two fandoms, between bronies and furries. But
I did draw him as a werewolf.
You literally drew that because I grew a beard.
Because he grew a beard. He doesn't normally have a beard. So
yeah, this is fairly new. But anyway, what I generally say is that there's similarities, obviously, between the two fandoms, but they're superficial in the sense that they didn't come from the same place. This is an example of convergent evolution, which is a real term in biology when you've got two different animals that kind of end up looking the same but came from different lineages because they both adapted into the same thing.
I'll make that distinction.
This is my theory, all right?
Okay.
Yours can be similar, but maybe it came from a different lineage.
Okay,
right?
I found it.
But that's basically my thing, is that there's a lot of similarities between them, but if you're a brony, you didn't necessarily become a brony because you're into cartoon animals.
So Simul took me to the Seattle Aquarium when I was here a few months ago, and he took a really cute picture in front of this otter. So I drew him as an otter too, which...
Oh.
The internet is really slow. That's hotel Wi-Fi.
So I kind of think he would be an otter. Like that kind of fits him.
Yeah, I can see it.
I can see it, yeah, because it's up there on the screen. The power of suggestion, right?
So, as a genetic biologist myself, I went to Johns Hopkins University where I did study I did study the idea, like you were saying, convergent evolution. In terms of science, it's easier. It's more beneficial to categorize things and divide things based on more apparent similarities than overall similarities. Because if that was the case, technically we would all be classified as fish because we evolved from just a weirdly mutated fish. So if you want to say that bronies are a type of furries, then technically all mammals are fish. That would also mean that all Mormons, Muslims, and Christians are just a type of Jews.
Or just a...
Yeah, so it's like, okay, do you want to be really, really broad? Because that means everything that descends from this one thing would be considered that. Or do we divide things based on important similarities and differences?
Or...
Which is why some bronies consider bronies separate from furries.
Yeah, in a nutshell, you can say the brony fandom didn't start with furries, right? There were a lot of people that got into it that had nothing to do with the furry fandom. And again, there's a lot of similarities, and I love furries. I have a bunch of friends that are really into the furry community, and I've always been very adjacent to it.
You love furries? Are you dating a
But-
furry?
No, I'm
I didn't hear anything
anyone.
about this. What? Okay.
I'm not dating anyone, by the way.
Oh, you're my friend.
All right, any other questions? Any comments? Yeah.
So earlier you said like giraffes are like 20 feet. That's not true.
That's totally wrong, yeah.
It's 20 feet.
Really? Hey, I'm good at this.
Title of the podcast, Giraffes are 20 feet.
Giraffes are 20 feet.
Accurate by accident.
Although, a giraffe still has the same number of vertebra in its neck that a human does. It's got 7. They're just longer. Isn't that interesting?
Weird.
Yeah, super weird. Biology is cool, though.
Who here has a giraffe son? I'm just curious. Oh, okay.
Yeah?
My son is a okapi. So
An okapi. That's awesome.
Our friend Paleo Steno, who does, who he was a guest on our podcast a few times. He does his own YouTube review show as well. He specifically chose an okapi as his sona, which is interesting.
Okapis are very interesting because that's an example of an animal that for a long time was thought to be a cryptid. It was... I don't remember the exact details of it, but basically it had been reported from like sightings that people had seen this weird like half zebra, half donkey looking thing in the savannah or wherever, but it could never get confirmed and properly documented until relatively recently, I think in like the 1980s or something. And so for the longest time, people thought it was a myth. Just kind of interesting how that can happen.
Yeah, but that perfectly fits in the world Zootopia because you had more African-based savanna animals in this world. So having okapi?
An okapi.
Okapi, okay.
I have a plush
It's such
okapi
a-
at home.
Such an interesting name.
I got it from the San Diego Zoo.
Oh.
San Diego Zoo is like the best zoo.
Yeah, I grew
It's
up
a great zoo.
by San Diego, so it's really fantastic, especially that wilderness area where you can actually drive your car into that savanna area.
Yeah. Well, we went to the San Diego Zoo and then we went to the reserve, which is like outside of town.
But it's still part of the San Diego Zoo
It's technically the
complex,
zoo. Yeah. Yeah. No, that was fun. I got to go back there at some point. Yes.
kind of on that topic of cryptids, since you've looked at the Zootopia movie minute by minute, what's like the most exotic animal that you've noticed in the film? Either, someone in the background or someone in the foreground?
That's a really good question. I'm trying to think.
Because, like we said, everything is a non-primate mammal, so it kind of has the...
Yeah. What's the most exotic animal we've seen?
The most out of place, again, I would say, would be the domestic pig, but...
I suppose. Yeah. I don't know, because I feel like it would have really stuck
I don't
out
think I
if there
saw
was something.
I don't think I saw a kangaroo. That would be exotic, but I don't think we saw any kangaroos.
I've seen apparently there's been horses. I've had trouble spotting the horses in the crowd, evidently. I don't know. It makes me think of BoJack, though. That show is so good.
That's such a...
You could think, what was it? There were like a few different things we were wondering if it could technically all be in the same universe. So we were looking at Agretsuko, BoJack, and Zootopia.
And I guess now we can add Beastars into this mix.
Add what?
Beastars.
What is that?
That's the new anime manga. Everyone with that
I've
the wolf and the deer.
I've never heard of
I-
it. Oh,
I
I've
think
seen
it's- yeah.
screenshots of it. I've not watched it. Is it
Okay.
good?
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll have to
I'm just
check
saying
it
we
out.
could add it to the list. Basically, every show is a furry show now. We furries have taken over the world.
It's a continuum. It's how furry it is. Like, for instance, BoJack still has humans in it. So maybe that's the one thing that would keep it from being part of that universe, because there are no humans in Agretsuko or
Well,
Zootopia.
how do we know that the humans are not locked out of Zootopia?
Oh, gosh. That's a grim reality.
wait.
What if they just got, like, sent off, like, deported?
What do the predators eat in Zootopia if they can't eat the prey? Maybe they grind up humans that wander in and...
I thought they ate bugs
They
or
do
something.
eat bugs, but I think that'll be a fun theory, okay? And then, yeah.
Maybe Zootopia is like Attack on Titan.
There's a giant wall.
Humans on the outside,
Oh, that would be interesting if it's actually maybe Zootopia is actually a zoo that he had his own independent like history and evolution, and they block themselves out from the humans, and they think that they're blocking the humans out, but in reality they're actually just a zoo.
I'm gonna search to see if like crossover fan art of that exists between Attack on Titan and Zootopia.
You'll find furry Attack on
All right.
Titan.
So we actually, I guess since this is his first furry con, I want to kind of get an idea of what everyone's persona is in the crowd. So
do a census.
We'll start on this end, and you just shout your persona as I kind of point to you. Oh.
Otter?
Otter.
Fox.
Mine would take too long to explain.
Okay.
Ocelot.
Nice.
I'm a terrible
Good.
Okay.
Sergo.
Wolf.
Ooh.
Is a human first.
Okay, so whoever was a fox, raise your hand. It seems to be
Nice.
a majority of, like, if you look at the polls of what the most popular personas are, it's normally fox, wolf, and some type of other canine. Normally a dog or...
I mean, people like dogs in real life. Dogs are just cool.
Yeah, Mr.
You
Peanut
know?
Butter's
So
fun.
why wouldn't you want to be a dog, you know? Another thing, this is another sort of parallel thing. This is another example of, does this count as furries or not? But when I was younger, I was like really into Sonic.
Yes.
And like, you know, people make Sonic OCs as well. And I have noticed that there seem to be more
Do you
Fox.
have a Sonic OC?
I had one when I was...
Sonic Sona?
I had one when I was younger, yeah.
Okay, easy.
It's probably on my old DeviantArt somewhere, which we will not look at.
Let's look up your DeviantArt.
But that's something else I've noticed is that there were a lot of Fox OCs in Sonic fan art also. And I don't know if it's for similar reasons or if people just really like Tails. Tails is awesome. Tails is a good character.
Is he in that new...
He's not.
Okay, because I saw like...
The movie? No.
I saw,
I'm
like-
so excited for that. They fixed the design. Oh my gosh. That was... There's a theory that was just a viral marketing thing, that like the design they ended up with was the one they were planning from the beginning. I don't think that's true because I feel like it would have been really hard to keep that quiet, and like there's evidence of the artist being brought back in to work on stuff again. But I'm just glad that they fixed the design because it's an example of a term many people may have heard, the uncanny valley, right? Where it's just in that one place in the spectrum between like fully realistic and like cartoony that makes it maximally creepy. You know, it's just not pleasant at all. So in terms of these new movies coming out and stuff, like I'm really glad they fixed that design.
I guess another raise of hand. Who here is a Seattle or Washington local? All right, and who's from out of state?
Out of state people, where are you guys from?
Idaho.
Idaho,
Ooh.
Oregon, and also Oregon.
Okay.
Okay, so Northwest, but then like a scattering of...
There seems to be,
Other
like,
places.
I was thinking most furry cons, if the smaller ones, do have a majority of local attendees and then a mixture of the surrounding states, and then a few would be from outside the states.
We do have quite a few from Europe here, too.
Really? Wow.
Who here has been to this con before?
It's a pretty new con, right? It's only like second or third year.
Who's
Third year.
been here all 3 years then? Okay.
Because they had that, and then the first year they did that Life with Lisa Ling CNN documentary. This is where it was filmed.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
My art was featured on that too.
Yeah, well, there's a few people I've seen like show up in the news. It was Vancouver, I think, that it was when the Syrian refugee kids came in. If anyone has seen that clip of them like playing with the guys in the fursuits, it's the cutest thing ever. And like I recognize a few. One of them was a Gilda, so, like Gilda from MLP. Yeah.
Do you want a fursuit?
No.
You seem like you really want a fursuit.
It looks like
it.
it.
Pitch in and get him a fursuit.
Don't. No.
Let's get him a fursuit.
I mean, if you're offering. But to me, they look really fun to wear. But it also looks like a lot of work. And I have friends that do it, and it's the whole thing where, like, you got to be there and you got to have the handler with you, right? You need someone to help you navigate through. We've had people... I know someone that made a costume representing Front Page, which is one of Everfree Northwest's pony mascots, and we have a fursuit of that. And every time we've brought that to a con, it's been very slow going because it's like stop for a photo every 2 seconds, going through this big clump of people.
There was someone here last year that had the rainbow
Yeah.
Fursuit.
Yeah, you see those from time to time. They're pretty cool. There was a really neat, really high quality Hoofbeats fursuit that I saw at BronyCon a few years. Hoofbeats is this character. That's
the one he does. He's the official mascot for
BronyCon.
BronyCon.
BronyCon is dead.
I know.
Forever.
And technically, you're now the conchair of the largest remaining pony convention.
Yet to be seen, right? Because it hasn't cycled over yet. We'll see how we do. Yeah, I'll take a moment to plug that. If anyone is into My Little Pony much at all, Seattle does have its own My Little Pony fan convention, Everfree Northwest. This year we're moving over, next year, 2020, we're moving over to the Hyatt Regency Bellevue, and that's going to be in August.
I guess if you're plugging that, I'm going to plug that I'll be vending at Midwest Fur Fest, and I'll also be doing some panels there. I'll also be vending at Painted Desert Fur Con, Further Confusion, BLFC, Furry Fiesta, and Furry Weekend Atlanta. Oh, and Anthrocon. I just got confirmed for that coming up for next year.
Yeah, this is how Choco makes his living.
Yeah, so I'll buy my stuff.
Is vending.
I'm like Nick. I'm a con artist. You have to buy my stuff, please, or else.
A con artist?
I am a little con artist. I'm an
Sell
artist
art
who
at
vends
cons.
Yeah.
Sell art at cons. That's what you do. You're doing other panels here as well, aren't you?
Yes, I will be doing the convention history panel. So if you guys want to talk about the history of the furry fandom and how that relates to how cons evolved over time, I'll be doing that tomorrow. I think it's around 7 as well, 7 or 8. I'm also writing the history book on it. The division of the panel will be in the structure of my history book. So I've divided up the history of conventions from the early days, specifically centered around WorldCon in the 1930s. And I've kind of divided all the different cons into specific periods, how they evolved, and I'll be covering that up to the furry and ponycon scene. And I'll also be doing a transformation panel Sunday evening. I think it's at 7 p.m. after the Thanksgiving, I think there's a Thanksgiving dinner or some type of,
That's tomorrow.
or closing ceremonies. Yeah, it'll be after that. All right. So, any other questions or comments before we start wrapping things up?
I think we've got... Yeah, go ahead.
Both of you, how many times have you seen Zootopia?
Ooh.
Not counting not counting your minutes.
So that's the thing. Most of the Zootopia stuff in my life has been through this podcast, right? So I've seen little itty bits of it many, many times, of course. I think, how many times have I watched the whole movie through in one sitting? Probably 3 or 4 times. Like, honestly, not even that much. But it's kind of fun to watch it in chunks like this because you kind of can go more in depth on things you didn't notice when you were just watching it here. And we're going to be watching it here immediately after this panel. It's going to be screened in this room, so that should be a lot of fun too. I can add one to my count.
Our friend AC Racefest, who's been a frequent guest on our show as well, I think he watches it like religiously, like almost every other day.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Every Sunday.
He's an insane Zootopia fan. In fact, he just started a new Zootopia podcast with the ZNN folks. So that's kind of our rival Zootopia podcast. But it's interesting. When we started, we were only one of 2 Zootopia podcasts. The other Zootopia podcast, I think, was like, it was the opposite of what we did. While we watched 1 minute at a time, this Zootopia podcast watched the movie every single week and wanted to see how long it would be before they got sick of it. I'm guessing since they are no longer around, they must have got sick of it after a while. I've probably seen this about 10 times in its entirety.
And we're committed to finish.
Yeah, we're actually forced to finish. The guys who started the Star Wars Minute, Alex Robinson, who's a comic book artist, and Pete the Retailer, they actually said, if you start doing a podcast in our style, you're obligated to finish it. And since we had him on our show, we actually had to make that promise to him. So we were forced to finish this entire movie. I don't know how much longer we have left. By the time we're done, I think Zootopia 2 is going to come out, and we have to start doing the Zootopia 2 minute.
I'm not committing to that.
But we do know our very last minute of this will be with Your Movie Sucks again, since he requested to be for the very last thing or so.
Which is going to be just credits. So
Yeah,
we'll see
credits.
how that goes.
Oh, we will have people who are furries who actually worked on Zootopia movie join for some future episodes too. So maybe they could point out their names to the credit. Oh, that's me right there for a split
You're
second.
saying that furries worked on this movie?
Shocking.
Actually, like, if you guys don't know the story, there was a Nick Wilde I met at Disneyland who actually ended up becoming a part of the furry fandom because of.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if your job, I figure a lot of like Mickey Mouse, Nick Wilde costumers at Disney or like sports mascots are probably furries also. I wonder how many people get into it through that. Like, man, I wish I could just wear this casually, you know? Like, how can I squeeze more use out of this thing? Because they cost like thousands of dollars,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I was quoted like $7,000 for one of the first suits I was wanting to make.
What was it?
It was my pinata character.
Oh, that's right. Your pinata Sona.
All
I
right.
like that character.
So since this is Simul's first FurCon, what recommendations? If you have any recommendations for things he should do,
What
at
can
this
I
con,
not miss?
What do you want? What do you think he should see? Should he see any specific panels? Should he go to room parties? What do you think he should do if this is his first FurCon?
Shower.
Shower. You need to shower.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The first suit parade.
First suit parade.
See that? That sounds fun. What time?
It's like 5 or 6, yeah.
All right. I'm going to try and get here much earlier tomorrow if I can manage. Oh, thank you. Yeah. What else? Any other must-see things?
Yeah, actually, I know furry cons normally do have room parties, but I'm not sure about this one specifically. Is this a room party convention?
Any of the dances are probably a good one.
Dances? Okay. Oh yeah, you haven't seen the furry dance. Furry music, because we come from the brony side where there are intense brony concerts and raves, but we noticed that the furry fandom has been picking up on a lot of those too lately, and a lot of our friends who who work AV and DJ at PonyCons have migrated over to the furry con side, which I think is very cool that there's at least a crossover.
There is a lot of overlap, and it's kind of interesting when you have such a niche community that still builds up a lot of cons. Oftentimes you'll see the same staff at like different cons across the country doing the same thing. Like for pony conventions for a long time, basically every single con had the same AV department. It was like the same people going to each of them. But it's neat. It's neat to see a community develop around anything, whether that be My Little Pony or Zootopia specifically, or just any furry kind of thing.
Or Scientology.
Yeah, totally. That as well. Well, I think we are just about done here. Yeah, 8:26. So I think we'll go ahead and get wrapped up. We just want to thank you guys so much for coming. Hope you had a good time. Thanks. We're going to go ahead and do a quick outro here on our outro theme music. We're going to play for you guys here. But thank you so much for coming. Is it going to work? There it goes. Thank you guys so much for coming. We hope you enjoyed this live episode of Zootopia Minute. If you did enjoy the podcast, you can check us out on YouTube, Zootopia Minute. YouTube.com/C/Zootopia Minute will bring you there. You can also follow us on Twitter at Zootopia Minute, like our page on Facebook. Up on the screen, you'll see our individual Twitters as well. So once again, thank you guys so much for having us. We had an absolute blast. Enjoy the rest of the con.